You need not fear. We're not going to have a plenary sharing of all your conversations. We didn't think that would be manageable or desirable. My name is Richard Church. Thank you so much. I'm Deputy General Secretary, Discipleship. So this is our topic. And I'm the other half of Francis in terms of the collaboration. I knew that would come out wrong. We've sometimes called ourselves Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Serious. I'm not going to win, am I? When you're in a hole, stop digging. We know that with the topic that we've got, it's quite clear that so many people have been working throughout their lives on being encouraged by others in their walk with Jesus, and in their own term, doing that encouragement for others. So we don't want to send a message out that we've just discovered discipleship and we're starting afresh, because clearly that's absurd. But what we do want to say is that very often in our lives we settle back to a groove, a routine, and sometimes we need to hear the Spirit say, take another step. Take another step. As we try to understand the implications of assessing the inherited practices of church and ministry in the light of an emphasis on missional discipleship, I want to assure you that we are hoping that this gathering will be a laboratory of ideas. We have not organised this conference to try to simply tell you what our thinking is about walking the way. We brought together speakers, facilitators, workshop leaders, who have their own experience of that and from whom we can all learn. So we're wanting to encourage a sharing of ideas and initiatives across the denomination. We want to feel that the Walking the Way website can be a forum for experiments, some which fail, some which don't fail. We want to encourage that participation between us all. Our time at Yarnfield has been designed to give space and time for dialogue, both over how we can encourage congregations to put the practices of discipleship at the centre of what we are and what we do, and also how to address pressing concerns of ministers being deployed by synods in ways which make for effective mission and good pastoral care, without exhausting people in the process. And you will appreciate that that is tricky. And in addition to all the informal spaces, lunch queues, coffees, corners, bar, in which we anticipate conversations along these themes taking place, there are also sessions each day, being led by Paul Whittle, titled Being a URC Minister, the Opportunities and the Struggles. They're taking place each day in the Cedar Suite. So I hope that at the end of the gathering, you will find that there has been space for your questions and your concerns. And maybe some of your colleagues will help to resolve some of those questions. Please also be aware that Doug, Ian and Loveday will not be able to join us until tomorrow morning, but she will be with us for the rest of our gathering. In addition to resourcing our times of worship and Bible study, are available to you as a pastoral resource. We know that ministry bears wounds, and sometimes those wounds you can't talk about because of the nature of them. We want you to feel the opportunity here to be listened to, and if you want, to find somebody to pray with you. And the worship and team are willing and able to do that. We will introduce Love Day to you tomorrow morning. Those of you who've come away carrying particular burdens may find that opportunity helpful. We do not know what might come out of this gathering, but I want to assure you that if some are having a growing sense of something which needs to be brought before the church, then I'm told there is still time for a resolution to be brought to General Assembly. Such a resolution comes as a private member's bill in the name of 2 members of Assembly and needs to be submitted 3 weeks before, by noon on the 15th of June, to the General Secretary. This gathering has been supported by many different groups. One of them we're going to hear from in a moment, but first I'm just going to hand back to John.
Let me conclude this session by telling you what I hope to gain from the next 3 days. And you will have your list, and me telling you my list might help you to think, well, yes, those are some of the things I want as well. If your list does not coincide with mine, that could be fine. But I invite you to think what is on your list. None of us comes blank. And sometimes the things we look for are things that come looking for us. So here are the things I'm looking for. I hope to think in fresh ways, or to recall things I might have forgotten, about what it would mean for me to follow Jesus faithfully in the next stretch of my living. I hope to learn from some rather special speakers, people with fuller Christian experience and deeper Christian insight than I have. And I'm grateful they've given time to come and help us. Because discipleship is a focus of the moment for Christians and churches from many traditions and various lands, I hope to catch up a little with what might be a contemporary movement of the Spirit of God. I look forward to the session with ministers and moderator from my own synod, which may take us into some practical issues around the context and the challenges in our part of the URC. I hope to refresh my joy and sense of privilege about ministry, and particularly about serving in the URC's ministry. I hope to enjoy your company. And I mean to offer something of myself for the enrichment and perhaps even for the enjoyment of people around me. And I hope to learn from people I know and people I don't yet know about the Christ who knows us better than we know ourselves and who always leads and constantly invites us to follow. That's my wish list. What's yours? Now we're going to hear for a minute from one of the trustees of the Coward Trust, and we thank them very much for helping us set up this event and resource this event. And Susan Durber has got 1 or 2 things to say to us.
So I don't need to say my name, do I? But there is a name I want you to remember. It's the name William Coward. As a result of whose generosity, the Coward Trust, exists and is able to support ministers in learning and in developing their ministry. Many of you here will have already benefited from the Coward Trust. There are some of you who will have had a grant for a more expensive sabbatical, perhaps travelling the world. I can see some of you. Some of you will have had a grant towards studying for a master's degree or a doctoral degree. And increasingly, that's where we're giving our grants. And pretty much all of you, many of you, will have been at synod, spring or summer schools, which have been supported by the Coward Trust. But we want to be able to spend more money than we do at the moment. And I want to remind all of you here that the Coward Trust exists, and find our website. Any good search engine will help you find it, the Coward Trust. And please, please think about ways in which your own ministry might be enriched by some extra funding for study and reflection. William Coward was an early dissenter, a merchant who made a fortune in what was a murky, grim, and broken economy of his time. And we have a history of the Coward Trust that is very clear about that story, but it's not a simple story. So I have some copies of the history, which I'll be glad to share with you if you want to follow that up. But he resolved, having made his fortune, to use his money for good. And he left a large amount of money to fund theological education. That bequest is now thoroughly ethically invested, along with the URC's guidelines, and it is available to support the ministry of the church and the learning of our ministers, and lay people as well, for recognised courses, for recognised ministries. So please do look us up on the web and think about your next sabbatical, your next course, and see whether we can help. I am one of 4 trustees of the Coward Trust. It goes back hundreds of years, so I stand in a line of succession with Isaac Watts and P.T. Forsyth. Yes, you see, you didn't need to know my name at all. So remember the Coward Trust. We are thrilled to be able to support in a small way this gathering, and pray that it will enrich the church and deepen our faith and challenge and guide us in the discipleship of Christ, the Christ whom William Coward sought to follow in his time. Thank you.
Friends, that brings us to the end of this session on setting the scene. If it hasn't answered the questions that you came to it with, then please feel free to speak to any of us who've spoken this afternoon, and other people too that know about this. Certainly you're fairly safe with people with red lanyards on. We're now going to break. Remember, this is the opportunity... Oh, sorry, Jim. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry to interrupt you, Richard. Just a couple of things on behalf of the planning group. Sittings at meal times. If you have a blue lanyard, then you're first for lunch, second for dinner. Okay? Democracy rules. Therefore,